What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Now, today I've got for you just one story, and it's pretty close to my heart because, as you guys will know if you've been around on my channel for a long time, and I'll try and insert some footage right here for those of you watching on YouTube of me with my snake Marty. I had a snake, and I say had because sadly Marty passed away a few months ago, called Marty. He was a corn snake, and he was great. So yeah, this is a story, the one that I'm about to read, that is close to my heart. Let's get some RIP Martys in the comments down below because he was a good lad. And yeah, he did appear on this channel a couple of times. And if you can remember him being on this channel and you were here, then respect to you because you've been around for a long time. But yeah, that is why I've chosen this story. It's a very, very good one. It actually somehow spans almost a decade, and it might be one of the longest stories in terms of duration that I've ever covered on the channel. But yeah, without further ado, lots of love to Marty. Let's get into the story. My husband abruptly adopted a Burmese python. It terrifies me and I want to rehome it. Plus 9-year new update. So the original post was posted to r/relationships on May the 7th, 2015. Maybe this would be more appropriate on r/snakes, but this problem is less about the python itself and more about my relationship with my husband. So personally, I don't think so. 6 months ago, our corn snake unexpectedly died. My husband, who is 26, and I, a 24-year-old woman, were both very upset. He was a cute little guy and still very young. My husband has owned several small reptiles during his lifetime, and he told me he was thinking of trying a milk snake this time, instead of a corn or a garter. Instead, 2 months after our corn died, he came home with a baby Burmese python. Apparently, it's always been his dream to own a Burmese. Not only am I annoyed that he got something like that without consulting me, on the upside, where we live they are legal, but I had several reservations that have only grown since we've owned it. I have general anxiety disorder, and that thing triggers my anxiety like no other. When I was doing research about Burmese pythons, I kept reading stories about them killing pets, children, and even their owners. So now I'm freaked out and have barely slept for 4 months. This is made worse by the fact that my husband has no experience with large snakes, and the larger the python grows, the more it shows. And also by us having a cat. The other snakes we've had, our corn snake and my husband's old garter snake, posed no threats. But now I constantly worry that the python is going to get out and eat her. I've taken to locking the cat in our bedroom at night, which interferes with our sleep since she meows and scratches at the door, and I constantly worry about her when she's home alone. I'll reiterate, this thing is freaking huge. He's already 6 feet long. Also, I'm home more than my husband, so I have to feed it and change its substrates often. I hate doing both so much, especially now that he's graduated to eating rabbits and pigs. I honestly think that since my husband bought him without consulting me, that caring for it should be his sole job, but I'm not going to let it go hungry or live in its own waste out of pride. Goodness me, he's eating rabbits and pigs. That is a crazy pet. Wow. I honestly don't think we'll be able to give this snake the best quality of life, which I think is essential for all pets. He's getting too big for the tank he's in, which is his third since we've gotten him, and I don't think we have the room in our house for the enclosure my husband wants to build him. His food is very expensive and eating into our savings, but it's what he needs, so we can't downgrade. The python doesn't deserve to live in a tiny space and eat inadequate food because my husband wanted one as a kid. At the same time, it's a good possibility it could eat us out of house and home. Also, I don't want kids while we own a python, and these things can live up to 20 years. I don't want to never have children, which I've dreamed of, because of a python. Yeah, that is one thing I will say with our corn snake Marty. He lived pretty long. I mean, I think he was like 15 or 16 finally when he passed away, which is a long time. You know, most animals don't really live that long, and I don't actually think we expect them to live as long as he did. Because of all these reasons, OP says, but especially the ones about our cat and its quality of life, I think we should rehome the python, preferably to a wildlife sanctuary or something. I've gently brought all of this up to my husband, how much mental anguish it causes me, how worried I am for our cat, how the snake is unsustainable, and all he's done is tell me to get over it, accuse me of not caring about his happiness, and tell me that I am being prejudiced against animals that aren't cute and cuddly. None of that is true, not even the last accusation. I liked his smaller snakes a lot. So, how can I communicate productively with my husband about this issue? He already loves this snake, and I think that's getting in the way of him seeing reason. Now, before we get on to the first update, first of all, some people were asking in the comments down below on the original post, About OP's rebuttals to her arguments, we've only really seen just the last bit there where he's saying, okay, that's fine, but do you not care about my happiness? Which personally I do think is a bit of a joke. Also, him saying that you only like cute or typical pets, when surely he knows that you've enjoyed having previous snakes, or the corn snake, for example, in your life, or the garter snake, is a very weird thing to say. But yeah, OP has addressed her husband's rebuttals to her arguments. So as far as worrying about the python getting out and killing the cat / future kids / us, he said, I won't let it get out. You need to go on new anxiety medication. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me start that again. I won't let it get out. He says you need to go on new anxiety medication. Jesus, it's just not what you want to hear from your husband at all. Never mind the fact that both the corn and the garter escaped from their tanks, OP adds as well. Oh wow. He also said, well, what are you going to do? Let it starve just because you don't like it? That's cruel. Okay, but OP literally said that she wants to rehome it and actually not let it starve, and also is worried that the family, her and her husband, can't keep up with it and give it the life it deserves. The opposite of cruel. He says that we have room for the enclosure and that we'll find money to keep buying it food. He says I'm ridiculous to not want babies while we have a python, and says everything will be fine. That would concern me as well. I didn't realize that Burmese pythons, I probably should have realized this, but eat pigs. What? OP concludes, I don't find any of his rebuttals particularly compelling because they're just, no, that won't happen, to a concern of mine, without explaining why it won't happen. Okay, let's get into the first update then. This was posted on May the 14th of the same year, 2015, so a week after the original. First of all, I have to say thank you for the outpouring of support I got, especially from the reptile enthusiasts who happened to be browsing this sub. You guys are awesome. Now, I just want to say this at the beginning, so what everyone wants to hear is heard. The snake is gone and my cat is alright. Here is how it happened. Thursday night, while I was replying to people in my post, several people suggested talking to my husband's friend, who owns Burmese pythons, is an experienced reptile keeper, and could be a huge help. I was too blinded by the situation and my own anxiety to even think of that. I messaged him on Facebook Thursday night and told him the situation. He was shocked at just how bad things were, but apparently he tried to warn my husband that owning small snakes and then jumping to a berm is like thinking owning house cats makes you qualified to own a tiger. But my husband didn't listen. Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Owning a corn snake, I'm going to be honest, pretty easy, and well, actually one of the easiest pets you can possibly have, to be like, you can leave it for 2, even 3 weeks sometimes in the summer. It's going to be completely fine. Obviously you need to change the water, but yeah, having a snake that you have to feed a pig and rabbits, it sounds like a lot more effort. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, definitely more of a commitment. Anyway, this guy has been busy going to reptile shows. He breeds venomous cobras. He's kind of cool. So he only saw the snake in person once when we just got it, and was immediately disturbed when I told him about the overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handed a lot. What? Sorry, overfeeding, my husband's desire to start it on live food, and the fact that it free roams and is handled alone. Okay, that is new information I think that we didn't have. He told me he'd come over the next day, Friday, and give my husband a real talking to, as well as do anything he could to help us rehome it. I decided I couldn't live another day in the house like that, and neither could my cat. So Friday morning, I moved out to my mother's while my husband was at work. It was a bit sneaky, but I knew that if I tried to leave while he was home, he'd try and convince me to stay. I called him on his lunch break though, and told him that I had left until the snake was gone. He was very upset, but started accusing me of being so petty as to let a snake wreck our marriage. I had nothing productive to say to that, so I told him I'd talk to him later. Well, my husband's friend was so angry at what he saw of the snake that when he got to the house, when my husband was home from work, he gave him the tongue lashing of his life and told him in plain terms that now that he saw how woefully inadequate we were as big snake keepers, there was no way he was going to let the snake stay at our house. Being yelled at really affected him. When my husband drove over to my mother's to talk to me, he looked like a kicked puppy. He broke down and told me that he loved me, that he was sorry for the heck he'd put me through, and that it had taken having reason yelled to him by an expert for him to really see what was going on, and that he now understood that the snake could no longer live with us. I know that at that point, the sorrow he felt was due to having his snake taken away though, not of real understanding. Not yet. So don't worry, he's not completely off the hook. It was cathartic to hear though. His friend contacted a herpetology society that he works with regularly, and then a member of that society, whose speciality is rehabilitating snakes that irresponsible pet owners get and then mistreat on his ranch. So the snake went yesterday to this guy's ranch where he'll be fed the right food and go on a diet apparently, and live in a space that's big enough for him. Well, that is good to hear. My husband and I have talked a lot about this, and he acknowledged that his fervent desire to fulfill his childhood dream made him careless and selfish, that he wasn't trying to be malicious towards me, but he just wanted the snake so badly that he'd do and say anything to keep it. It still seems like, though, that he hasn't learned, which I'm not expecting this early, but it's still a mite disappointing. He talked yesterday about getting a ball python, and I put my foot down. I don't think we should get another snake for a long time. Wow, okay, yeah. OP is clearly right here. This guy hasn't learned. I will jump in though and say that it is probably quite tough. Like, you can tell that this guy, it's been his dream all his life to have a sizable pet snake. You know, a lot of people out there do have corn snakes or small reptiles, but you can tell this has been his dream. It's just whether or not he can come to terms with the fact that this is really affecting his life and obviously his marriage and his wife's life to such a detriment that he needs to just leave it alone. I'm not sure if he's going to get to that stage. On Sunday, I sat him down and asked him to tell me the truth of how he got the python, because walking into a pet shop for a milk snake and just finding a Burmese was sounding more and more implausible the more I thought about it. Oh wow. He admitted that he arranged to get one with a breeder online while he was telling me he wanted a little snake, meaning he was actively lying to me. This breeder is also a state away, meaning my husband participated in something illegal when he met up with him to get it, since transporting Burmese pythons across state lines is against the Lacey Act. I'm very angry about this. I'm upset about his lies, and I'm upset that he blew me off for months. He admitted he lied just because he knew I'd say no, which shows such an immaturity that almost disgusts me. I'm upset that he broke the law. I'm upset that he only listened to what I told him when it came from someone else. Apparently, he's been having a quarter-life crisis that he didn't tell me about because he feels that he should have accomplished more with his life at 26. He never went to college. I feel sympathy for him with that, but that's no excuse to treat me badly. I moved back home with Kitty last night, but our marriage is in severe jeopardy right now due to the lying and the lack of respect that my husband has shown me. But I made vows to stick with him, and I don't take those lightly. We're going to be getting counselling, which I hope will make him really see what was wrong with what he did, rather than a knee-jerk response to being in trouble, so to speak, and will strengthen us. If not, well, I'll have to consider my options. P.S. People were saying in the other post that we were actually feeding the snake guinea pigs and that I was lying to make the snake look bad. Well, I suppose I was fudging the truth, but not that way. We were feeding it dead piglets. My husband's cousin owns a working ranch with several pigs, and my husband was buying them from him for a pretty penny. I didn't want to say because I thought people would focus on the snake eating baby animals and start calling for its blood instead of offering me advice. That has made things a whole lot worse in my opinion. Goodness me. Okay, now let's get on to the second update. This is the last one from 2015. This is a few weeks later, June the 13th. Hi, I'm back. The snake is still gone, but I guess I'm coming back out of desperation. People messaged me wanting to know how I was doing. Anyway, on the surface, therapy has been going well. My husband has been doing everything right. He's been contrite, open-minded, and treats me like a princess at all times. I can tell at home that he's making a conscious effort to listen to my opinions and thoughts and incorporate our therapist's suggestions into our lives. I feel like the hugest female dog saying this, but I don't think it's enough. Over these past weeks, I've had to come to terms with the fact that something about how I view my husband has fundamentally changed. And finally, after extensive soul searching a few days ago, I realized what it was. I have no respect for his intelligence anymore after all of this. That is very, very important to me. And now it's just gone, and I don't know how it can come back without him getting a personality overhaul. It's killed my physical attraction to him. I normally have a high libido, and prior to all of this, we made love 4 to 5 times a week. But now, since all this went down, we've been intimate 3 times. To be fair, while the snake was here, we were down to 2 to 3 times a week, but it was still more frequent than this. Despite all the changes he's making, he's still himself, and I don't think I can like who I know him to be now. He's still his goofy, absent-minded self who needs me to balance the checkbook and pack his lunch. I can't respect that anymore. I don't want to be his mum or a naggy sitcom wife. I used to love doing these things for him. Throughout our relationship, I've taken care of him, patched him up, and helped him solve his problems. I always saw it as the ultimate expression of love. Now, I'm just sick of it. He can tell something's still wrong. He's irritated about my lack of forgiveness and lack of a sex drive lately when he's objectively doing all the right things. But his lack of understanding towards my apprehension makes my feelings even more pronounced. I realized the other day that I love him dearly as a friend. I've known him since I was 9 years old, but no longer as a husband. That devastates me. I can't believe I'm thinking divorce after less than a year of marriage. I feel like such a failure. I haven't broached these feelings in therapy yet because they crystallized only a few days ago. But I don't know how to start because I know saying them will mean my marriage will be over. I've talked to my mum and friends about this and they all tell me to wait longer, to stick it out because I made vows. But I feel like I found out something fundamental about my husband that I wish I never have, and that nothing can be the same now. Wow, that is pretty damning stuff. I also probably would be inclined to say, not for the reasons of the vows, by the way. I mean, marriage is great and all, but I don't think you should stay with someone just because you said some vows. But I would be inclined to say give it some time, just because this is still relatively new, how you're feeling, and who knows how your feelings can change over a long period of time. However, let's just get into the update. This is the one that intrigued me in the first place. This was posted just 2 weeks ago at the time of recording, so 9 years later, October 14th, 2024. This is a 9-year update. I don't know if we've ever seen the like. This might be the longest or the greatest difference in terms of time between a post and an update. But yeah, here we go. 9 years later. So 10 years ago almost, I posted on r/relationships about being scared of my ex-husband's giant snake. Here is an update. One of my friends sent me this. Now that was the post posted on r/best of Redditor updates, which if you didn't know is where I get these sort of stories because people come together and they post the best stories from Reddit that have had updates, however long apart they might be. This one is definitely one of the longest I've seen. My friend said to me, I think you wrote these posts. And reading them, yeah, I did. A lot of people seem to be wondering what happened to me. So I logged into this account for the first time in 10 years to give one final update about what happened. I'm posting here because I'm not quite sure where to post. I feel like r/relationships isn't really a thing anymore. No, it definitely is. Basically, my ex-husband brought home a Burmese python after telling me he wanted a milk snake. I was really scared of it and anxious, but he was dismissive of my worries. I ended up getting the snake shipped off to a reptile ranch, but it absolutely shook my trust in my ex because I've just realized, ex-husband, wow, I glossed over that, because he was lying to me. It also made me realize that he relied on me to do everything for him like a second mother, and that I hated that. I really tried to work through the feelings I posted in the second update, but after 3 months, we separated. Okay, respect. It's totally okay if you judge me for this because I judge myself. After being separated for half a year, we ended up having sex. My grandma had just died, I was devastated. He came to the funeral to support me, and because he'd known her forever and loved her too. We went home together after the family lunch, and we ended up having comfort sex. Neither of us wanted kids at that point, but my IUD had slipped into my cervix at some point before this, and I ended up getting pregnant. Both of us were unsure about introducing a kid into our relationship, but decided to get back together and make another effort. I'd always wanted to be a mum and didn't want to abort. We found out pretty early into the pregnancy that it was actually a molar pregnancy, meaning that instead of a normal fetus, I was pregnant with a tumour. I had the mole removed, but I was one of those lucky people who develops cancer from their molar pregnancy. Oh my goodness. Luckily, the cancer was caught when I was only at stage 2 and responded really well to chemotherapy. I've been cancer-free since 2016. However, my ex's behaviour when I was extremely sick from chemo, we had stayed together after losing the pregnancy, caused me to put my foot down and want to divorce. He wouldn't or couldn't pick up the slack around the house, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I felt like I couldn't depend on him for anything, not even when I had cancer. Literally a week after I was told I was cancer-free, I told him I was moving out and wanted a divorce. I lived with my mum for a year while our divorce was being finalised, and a bit after it, and then decided to get a job in a new city because I needed a new beginning. I also decided to fulfill a dream of mine that I've been mulling over for a while, and I went back to college to get my BSN in 2017. I graduated in 2019 because I was in an accelerated program for people who already have another degree, and I now work as a neonatal nurse. The job can be really wearing and difficult, but it's so amazing watching tiny and sick babies grow and thrive and eventually leave. I feel like I found my calling. I also met a guy in my class when I went back to school. We were just friends for 2 years because I didn't feel ready to date, and then in 2019 we started dating. That guy is now my husband. We got married in 2022. My current husband is the most amazing man and partner I could have ever asked for. I can fully lean on him and him on me. And I don't have to ask him to please pick his socks up off the floor. He even does most of the cooking because I hate cooking. Due to my cancer treatment, I went into premature ovarian failure. So we're going to start IVF in the new year with eggs I had frozen before my chemo began. We also want to adopt and or foster at some point, and I've been looking into that as well. I know for sure that my husband is going to be a wonderful support for me and an amazing father. At the time of my divorce, I had no confidence that my ex would be either of those things. I don't want to just bash my ex though. He's doing much better since we got divorced. A month after I left for good, he actually attempted to unalive himself and was put on a 72-hour hold at the hospital. He took their advice to follow up with a psychiatrist seriously and was diagnosed with ADHD. It explains so much about how he was when we were together. A little later on, he was also diagnosed with autism. I don't speak to my ex because it's too painful for both of us, but my mum is still close to his mum and has given me some updates. He's taking medication that's really helped his ADHD and was able to go to trade school. He has a much better job now and has been in a steady relationship. I wish him all of the best. I look back on my old posts and all I can do is shake my head. I was putting up with so much that I would never put up with now. I also thought I was so grown up because I was 24 and married, but clearly I still have maturing to do. Part of me feels sad for my ex too, because he was struggling for so long and I was writing him off as unhelpful. However, even though he had a medical reason for being inconsiderate, I still had to do what's best for me, and I was at my breaking point. Considering his success, I think we're better off without each other. Oh, and I still talk to my ex's friend, the Cobra breeder, from time to time. Bucatini, the Burmese python, is still doing great in his new home. Okay, so there we go. That is the end of that one. What a name for a snake, by the way. I mean, I was a big fan of Marty as a name because, and if you know the reason for this, by the way, because I have said it once on the channel, but I mean, I've been making videos on this channel for now almost 6 years. So if you do know it before I say, mad respect. But it's actually named after the zebra from Madagascar. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Oh, very reasonable and very logical name. Obviously not, but I was about 7 years old when we got him. Anyway, let's carry on and talk about the story there a little bit. Yeah, I want to say one thing actually about this ADHD chat. I can understand why you're now saying, okay, we can put it down, put some of his actions down to a medical condition. However, I don't think you're allowed to, I don't think like having ADHD means that you suddenly cannot like be nice or understand like someone else's point of view, especially your own partner. Maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. Okay. Actually, you know what? I've forgotten the fact that he's diagnosed with autism as well. Okay. I'll probably rescind that statement, but I'm just thinking like if it was just ADHD, it doesn't mean you can't just, I know it's harder to do certain things that to others seem easier, but yeah, it wouldn't just necessarily mean that you then cannot understand your partner at all, or like the whole stuff with the, you know, from the original post of your ex-husband not understanding the impact having that Burmese python was having on you. I would say that's not ADHD, but yes, autism makes sense. But I think the main thing is what you said there at the end. It does sound like, well, for you, 100%, you're having a much better life. And it sounds like he's got the medication and the help that he needs to have a more successful and fulfilling life as well. It's probably good for him. So yeah, overall, good story, I suppose. And yeah, you might look back at yourself and think, oh, how immature I was, what mistakes I made back then being with that person. But who knows? Maybe everything happens for a reason. If you weren't with them, if you didn't break up, if you didn't get divorced, you never know. You might not have met the person you're with now who you seem to really love. And yeah, hopefully you're going to have an amazing life with that man. But there we go, guys. That is going to do it for this one. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like on this one. Drop a comment down below. Let me know if I have actually read a post that has been longer than this, that's had a 10-year plus update. I'm not talking about the story in general, just the distance in terms of time, the length of time between individual posts from one user about the same sort of story. I don't think we've had one that's over 9 years. But yeah, there we go. Comment down below. Let me know if I have done and I'm just forgetting it. And I'll catch you all on the next one.